The MOBAPAD M12 S is here. That's right, we finally have the MOBAPAD M12 S. We've already looked at the M12 HDs, so these are actually the cheaper ones, even though originally these were going to be the more expensive ones. Now I'm going to cover the confusion and also the difference between the M12 S and the M12 HDs, but let's just see what we get inside the box. So really inside the box, all we get is this, which is a case for them, right? Which fits them in, but you do not get a charging grip with the M12 S unless you pay for it, but the shell is the same, so it can fit the grip inside. So the ones I've got in here currently are the M12 HDs. And you can actually charge through it. It's a really nice case, actually. And of course, it does fit in there without the charging grip as well. You can just put the Joy-Cons on either side. And then inside, all you pretty much get is a spare D-pad. So you've got the dome dish installed originally, but I don't like it. So I've already put the normal traditional D-pad on already. And that's basically all that you get inside the box. So physically, let's just take a little quick look at the differences between the M12 HD and the M12 S. So the M12 S are on the left here, the M12 HD are on the right here. Now, you wouldn't be, too far shocked to see that they are basically identical. So the left sides are pretty much exactly the same physically, right? In terms of everything is exactly the same. The difference though, you can see, is the M12 S has gray bumpers and triggers. The M12 HD has black ones, and the same with the back paddles, and also the same with the cones on the joysticks themselves. Whereas on the right side, there is a little bit of a difference. On the right-hand side, we've got the same thing going again. We've got black triggers on the HD, gray on the S, black back paddles on the HD, gray on the S, and the same with the joystick domes, right? However, if you look at the buttons on the S, we've got an actual chat button, a home button, and a cog button, or settings. On the HD, we've got a macro button, home, and settings. So what's the difference, Andy? Well, I'll tell you. So what we've got here is on the M12 HDs, this is a programmable button. So you can actually remap this button to be whatever you like. Whereas on the M12 S, this is just a chat button. So I can press the C button and it comes up like an actual chat button, because this is using the Switch 2 protocol. So the M12 S is actually using Switch 2 protocol. The M12 HDs, the more expensive ones, are using Switch 1 protocol. So physically, they're all exactly the same. It's just those buttons are slightly different. However, I have noticed something else which is a little bit different, and that is on my M12 S, the back paddles are mushier than on my M12 HDs. Now, obviously, I've only got one of each. I don't know if that's a discrepancy in manufacturing, if there's mushy back paddles on the M12 HDs as well, or if it's specifically a thing that they've chosen to change for the M12 S. It shouldn't be, because let me just kind of run you through what the main differences are between the M12 S and the M12 HD before we go any further. So they both have the TMR glide sticks. So both M12S and M12 HD have TMR glide sticks. Now, TMR sticks are fantastic. They are basically better than Hall effect. They still use magnets, so they minimize drift massively, but they have a much larger resolution accuracy, so that the area that it reads input is much, much, much greater than Hall effect or even potentiometer, so they are excellent. But they've also added the silicon ring, the little dish at the bottom of the dome of the actual cone of the joystick, so that when you move these around, they are super smooth. It is absolutely fantastic. It's exactly what Nintendo use in the Switch 2 Pro controller. It is brilliant. They both have mechanical switches. So on the M12S and the HD, you've got this. Can you hear that there's a clicky switch? That is because they are using micro switches in everything, basically. Everything's got a micro switch, other than the back paddles, which are like a mushy membrane. Like I said, we get an M button on the HD, we get a chat button on the S. They both feature turbo and macro, as well as button swap capabilities. They both support the MOBAPAD app, which we'll look at a little bit later. They both have the power saving feature. Again, I'll cover that momentarily. But now is where they begin to differ. So the M12 HD actually has HD Rumble. However, it is not HD Rumble 2, which is new for the Nintendo Switch 2. This is actually using Switch 1 protocol, as I said earlier. So they're actually using Switch 1 HD Rumble. So it's not there yet, as in terms of Switch 2. And that cannot be like a firmware upgrade thing, it's a hardware thing. So the HDs have HD Rumble 1. The M12 S have no HD Rumble. It's gone backwards to standard rotary rumble. So just normal old school rumble. It is much more violent. It's louder and a little bit more aggressive. It doesn't feel as nice as HD Rumble 1 or 2. The other difference is because the HDs are running Switch 1 protocol, we only get 6-axis gyro. Whereas the M12S, just here, is running Switch 2 protocol, right? These get 9-axis gyro. So you get full Switch 2 gyro here. Now there's something else as well, is currently the M12 HDs cannot wake your Switch 2 from sleep by pressing the home button. However, MOBAPAD have said they are going to include this in a new firmware update. But because the M12S are actually using Switch 2 protocol, you can wake from sleep. So let me just demonstrate that now. I'm just going to go into sleep mode. Give it a second. And now I'm going to press and hold the home button. And there we go. It's a little bit delayed, I will say, so it takes a little while. But yeah, it does actually have Switch 2 protocol. And there's more. The M12 HD do have NFC support. So if you a regular Amiibo or Amiibo card user, you can use them with these ones. However, you cannot do that with the M12S. And now there is a massive kicker here, which is totally, I still don't understand it. It's something that I brought up immediately in the M12 HD video, is the M12 HDs cannot charge unless the Switch 2 is awake. And what I mean by that is, regardless of whether you've got these attached, you know, in handheld mode or even docked attached, these will not charge unless the screen is actively on. So that means you must be like playing a game or have the actual console awake for these to charge. So you cannot put these on, turn the screen off and plug it in. They will not charge. They just will not charge. So you must have the Switch 2 awake for them to charge. That is a massive oversight. And they've even come out and said this is a hardware physical problem that they just cannot fix. So there's no software like upgrade that they will push. There's no firmware upgrade that can fix that. They just will never charge unless the screen is on. Whereas the M12S, these ones, because they are using actual Switch 2 protocol, these do charge whilst it's off.
Right, it's time for me to pay the 128 KB bills for today's totally impartial video sponsor, and that's TOBENONE. And today, we're lucky enough to introduce the TOBENONE UDS015M docking station. And look, I do have to be upfront and honest with you. Yes, both me and Andy are now on the dark side using MacBooks a lot of the time, so promoting this may be more than a little selfish. But here's the reality. MacBooks are incredibly powerful, useful machines, but their port selection can still be an absolute joke. If you want to connect a couple of monitors, your capture card, microphones, or hard drives, your desk instantly turns into a tangled nightmare of cheap dongles and cables everywhere. The UDS015M fixes that completely with its massive 18:2 powerhouse design, specifically designed for Mac users. First, the displays. You're getting native support for dual 4K monitors at a 60Hz output. That means you can have your game or a timeline running perfectly on one screen and your script on the other, all driven from a single dual USB-C connection. It handles massive power delivery to keep your MacBook fast charged, and is packed with high-speed USB ports, SD card readers, and gigabit Ethernet for rock-solid connection when downloading large files. Personally, I love how incredibly it makes the desk look. You literally just plug in one connector when you sit down and your entire studio wakes back up. You've got to love it. So if you want the ultimate workstation upgrade to eliminate cable clutter on your own Mac, then this is it. Hit the link in the description to check out the TOBENONE UDS015M, and by doing so, you'll be directly supporting the channel. And of course, massive thanks to TOBENONE for sponsoring this video.
Now let me just show you what I mean by this. So let's go on here. These just here are the M12 HD. Okay, so this is the M12 HD attached. If I go into the controllers, you can see here that it says USB attached, right? And that is because we have the power adapter, power saving mode set to non-power saving mode. Again, I'll cover this in a minute, but yes, we've got that like that. So they are seen as USB inputs. Now, for the M12 HDs to actually input and work, you must go into the settings of the Switch 2, go to controllers, and then turn on USB Pro Controller mode, right? So Pro Controller wired communication, because this is seeing them as wired Pro Controller, and that is why it says USB. And it doesn't show up here. It's saying, no, this is a third-party attachment, and it will only charge whilst it's like this, right? So whilst the screen is on, that is the only way it will charge. However, if I get the M12 S and make sure that they are both on the like non-power save feature, right? Check this out. I will attach them. I won't edit this at all, so you can see that I'm just showing you exactly what it is. Can you see now that this is actually showing, oh look, Joy-Cons are attached, no USB mode, because these are actually running Switch 2 protocol so that you actually get charging. There we go. And if I powered the screen down, it will charge it even with the screen off, providing that you've got it connected to power or that it's docked. So it must be connected to power, or it must be docked with the screen off, you know, like standby mode for them to charge. Now, if you unplugged it, now it's not going to charge whilst it's off, but when the actual console is on, it will be charging them, right? So, I mean, mine are fully charged, so it's not actually going to do anything. However, if I switch the power saving mode to off, now they are seen as detached wireless on battery Joy-Cons, and they will not charge at all. Okay, so that's what this power saving feature is you can see that they're not attached to the console. They are now separately wireless, and they will not leach power from the main system. And MOBAPAD estimate that you get about 30 minutes extra battery life from the main system by using it this way. However, I honestly just do not care myself personally, like 30 minutes here or there. I just want to use them properly like this so that I can just charge them and stuff and not worry about it. Like, oh no, why are my Joy-Cons dead? Oh, it's because I forgot to put them back into like charge mode, you know? So I just leave them on at all times. So immediately the M12S have a massive advantage over the M12 HD in the fact that A, they're cheaper, but B, they actually charge. Now, despite the fact that these are running Switch 2 protocol and they are showing as proper Joy-Cons, because they are seen as Joy-Cons, right? They actually seen as Joy-Cons and not a wired Pro Controller like the M12 HDs. Neither the M12 HDs or these can do this, but if you're in a game and you press and hold home, you do not get the quick access to bind the back paddles via the system, which is per game profile. You just cannot do that. I was really looking forward to that being a feature because these are running Switch 2 protocol, but unfortunately, that's just not the case because they are not seen as like an external Pro Controller. It just doesn't let you do that. So to assign the back paddles, you still have to manually do it via the actual device itself, right? So I have covered absolutely all the features in my original video of the M12 HDs just here. So I highly recommend if you want to see all of the features covered to go and watch that video. However, I will just show you in here that I have bound the back paddle just here to be like attack for Elliot just here. This is the Adventures of Elliot, this game. If I press and hold it, it does act as a proper button swap, so I can do charged hits, right? Because I'm pressing this one just here. But of course, we can do app stuff. Now, I said in the M12 HD video that you cannot bind per side unless you use the app, right? Everyone corrected me in the comments and said, no, you need to use the app for that. So I thought, okay, I will try it with the M12 S. Right, so here we go. We're going into the app. I'm going to MOBAPAD M12 S, like so. Let's go to like the left side, like this, right? And here we are. So I could do firmware upgrade. I've already upgraded mine to the latest ones. You could do a button test. you go to help and instructions, and then configuration and manage. So if I edit my current one, now I can remap buttons. However, if I go to L3 and go to button, I can't choose anything from the right side. It's only from the left side, the buttons input, that I can choose. And that is the same for the right side. If I connect to the right side, it only shows me right side buttons to connect. But the remapping, I cannot bind right side buttons to the left side, and nor can you do that physically. So I can't like press the buttons down combination wise and do that. You just cannot do that, which is a shame. You can still do an actual macro, and by macro I mean do a multiple input press and assign it to the back pedal. And you can still assign turbo on the fly by pressing the cog button and then whatever input that you want to assign turbo to. Again, way more detail in the M12 HD video, which I'll link at the end of this one. But again, I think that's a massive oversight. I feel like you should be able to bind stuff from the right side to the left side in the app, but it just doesn't work. And just to prove to you that this is different, on the M12 HDs that I've now attached, right, I'm now in the app again. And if I go to the back pedal and go to button swap, now I can set pretty much anything I want. Look, I've got all the face buttons from the right side to attach to the left side, but this is just not the case with the M12 S. Why? Why? Why is it different? I don't understand. So the M12 S, you cannot assign stuff from the right side to the left, but the M12 HDs you can, but only in the app. Everything I said about the M12 HDs applies here with these in terms of like the feel is really nice. I do like them physically. They are very good, especially compared to the Nintendo Switch controllers, right? So if you want to see a detailed comparison against the original Switch 2 Joy-Cons and the M12s, go and check out my M12 HD where I show ergonomics and all that good stuff. I just felt like it wasn't necessary here because these are physically exactly the same as the M12 HDs, so everything applies. So now finally is the price. So the M12 HDs that we'd already looked at, which is what they are now flagshipping as their like best ones, are $100. So the M12 S come in at $80. That's $20 difference. But if you want to buy one with the charging grip, so the M12 S with the charging grip, that brings it up to $96. So you're meant to be getting a free charging grip with the M12 HD because these things cannot charge unless the Switch 2 is on. Okay, so they are giving you that for free. But these ones which can charge with them attached, it's $20 less. But if you want the charging grip, it's another $16. I don't know. It doesn't sit right with me. I feel like it should come free with both of them. That's just my opinion. Now, the other thing is I actually think the M12 S is the better buy. So these are $20 less, but these actually have Switch 2 protocol. So 9-axis gyro, wake from sleep, as well as the fact that these things can charge because they actually get seen as Joy-Cons. Oh, and the fact that it's got an actual chat button as well, which is pretty handy if you use that often. The major downside here is the lack of any HD rumble because we're on Switch 2 protocol here, so they couldn't use Switch 1 HD rumble 1 because of the conflict there, right? That's why the HDs are Switch 1 protocol so that they can have HD rumble, and they haven't even been able to crack HD rumble 2 yet, which is why this just omits that. So we've got just lower grade tiered rumble in these, which is a shame. And no NFC support either. But honestly, for $20 less, the fact that they can charge, they've got a C button, and they actually have 9-axis gyro, which makes them, usable, makes me just think that these are the better buy. However, I still feel like these are a confused product. The M12 S were originally going to be called the M12 Pro, and they were going to be more expensive than the M12 HD. And at the last minute, they changed the name and dropped the price. So they made these more expensive. They changed the name from the Pro to the S and then dropped the price on these ones. I understand they wanted to get a product out there for the Switch 2, and I do think they are very good, build quality-wise, feature-wise to an extent, like TMR glide pad joysticks. Very, very nice, right? Like there's a lot that I like about these. I just feel like this should be one product, I feel like they should have waited another 12 months to really crack that Switch 2 protocol, get HD Rumble 2 in there, right? It just frustrates me that, does it come with a charging grip? Does it not? Can the things charge whilst they're attached, or do they not? Like, it's very sort of sporadic as to, like, some of the features are shared, some of them are not. It's just confusing to me, and I'm like an expert in this stuff. So to a general consumer, this is going to be wildly confusing, and I just feel like it's hard to really recommend them. If you must get some because you really want Pro Joy-Cons that are going to be very good, you know, but they are just lacking some features, in my opinion, buy the M12S. So there we have it. I'm kind of... I don't know how to feel, because I like them as a product. The physical thing is nice. They feel great. The switches are brilliant. The joysticks are very good. The triggers and bumpers are good. The back paddles are a bit of a letdown on the M12S versus the M12 HDs. The M12 HDs just feel better. They're more clicky. It's just lack of HD Rumble, lack of NFC support, you know, like lack of the fact that the back paddles do not let you assign. I would have loved, like, per game profile, per account profile assignment, like the official Pro controller for the Nintendo Switch 2. I was really hoping that was the case, and that's just not the case. The fact that I can't assign stuff from the right side to the left side, even in the app, is just frustrating, but you can on the M12 HDs. Like, there's so much going on here that it just doesn't make sense to me, but that's just my opinion. Yeah, let me know all your thoughts down in the comments whilst you're down there. Like this video, subscribe, become a member, and you get to chat to us over on our private Discord, and I will see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.